All right, guys. Welcome to today's coverage, and of course, it's another time with me. Usually, we do this for 30 minutes, but for today, it won't be a 30-minute broadcast. So we are going to run this for 1 hour from now to 6 p.m. So, because on the program today, we want to look at something extensively that has to do with the thought pattern of rapists, what actually happened in their mind of a rapist, and we'll look at also if it's a form of mental disorder. So I have a psychologist and of course a psychiatrist who is joining me. They are the professionals who understand how the brain works and how the mind functions. So they will be sharing some vital information with us and things we need to understand. So I welcome you all. If you're listening live on radio, you're welcome. And if you'd like to see us live, you can just join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay? Yeah. So my name is Twitwi, and of course, I'm going to introduce my guests now. Yeah, some of them I know you've met. One have been on the program before, so it's not strange to what we are doing here. But then, if this is your first time just joining us, I want to advise that you can ask questions by commenting. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, just drop your comment or drop any question you like my guest to answer, and the question will be shared with them. We'll get to see it live, even on Twitter. So let me first of all introduce. Yes, she is Oluronke Oginni, and she is a psychologist, popularly known as a co-psychologist because of during the lockdown she started something on YouTube. You can get to see her videos on YouTube, a co-psychologist. She shares information and everything we need to know about psychology. She is, of course, a clinical and abnormal psychologist. So, good evening, ma, and welcome.
Good evening, sir, and thank you for having me.
Okay, and also I have Dr. Samuel Aladejare. He is a psychiatrist and he's a resident doctor with the Federal Neuropsychiatric Center or Hospital in Yaba, Lagos. So he's also joining us, but something just happened. The line went off. I don't know. But guys, yes, as soon as you come back, we're going to start the conversation. But first, let's have this conversation. Let me start with you, madam.
Okay.
First, can you just tell us about psychology? Who is a psychologist?
So, basically, a psychologist is that individual who has interaction in understanding your behavioral patterns. What you think about, what you feel about leads to the way you behave. Okay, so let's say for instance you have an issue with a colleague, and the colleague passes by, the colleague doesn't greet you, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to greet this person anymore, I'm angry towards this person and all that, and then the behavioral pattern that exhibits it, the next time you see the individual, you will not greet this person. Okay, so your thoughts has led to the way you felt, and then your feeling has led to your behavior. So this behavioral pattern is what we study. Okay, and that's what we study in every individual, every client we encounter. So what has led to your behavioral pattern? We are not witches, as a lot of people actually think, but as a result of your behavior, that helps us to understand what your thought patterns are and how you feel about events around you and about others.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I want to believe that we all understand better now. all understand
So,
that.
Dr.
Uh,
Aladejare, thank you for joining us
so,
again.
Dr.
You're welcome,
Aladejare,
sir.
thank you for joining us again.
You're,
You're
wel-
welcome, sir.
you're welcome, sir. Good afternoon. Nice to be here once again.
Okay, so I
Hello.
Okay,
recall now
so
that
I recall now that
yeah, the last time you
yeah,
joined
the
me,
last time you
I didn't
joined
really
me,
get to ask
I didn't really
who
get to ask who
a psychiatrist is.
a
So I'm going to
psychiatrist
take
is.
that
So
opportunity
I'm
now
going to
to
take that
ask, maybe
opportunity now to
for the
ask,
purpose of
maybe
our listeners,
for the
those
purpose of
who
our listeners, those
might
who
not know, who is a
might not know,
psychiatrist?
who is a psychiatrist.
All right. Thank you. A psychiatrist is, first of all, is a doctor, and it's a doctor of the mind. What we do is apart from knowing how to now knowing how the brain functions, knowing how the entirety of the body functions, we also learn about how the mind works, how people behave, their emotions, their thoughts. We learn about those and then we learn how to correct them, thoughts, emotions, or behaviors. And we correct them in three ways. There are three ways that we correct those abnormalities. We correct them with medications, we correct them with talk therapy, which you could also call psychotherapy. And then we also correct them by trying to solve social problems around the person because we understand that any of these abnormalities could have resulted in the mental disorder that you see in a person. So there is a wide spectrum of what we do from the overtly psychotic person, the overtly disturbed person that you see on the streets, to the person that is just anxious before an exam, and even children. There is a wide range of what we do.
Oh, okay. Thank you
Okay,
very much,
thank you very much,
Dr. Aladejare.
Dr.
So
Aladejare.
now,
So
this will lead me
now
to
this
the
will lead
very
me to
first question.
the very first
I know
question.
everyone will want
I
to
know
understand.
everyone will want to understand.
Uh,
Um,
okay, I don't know.
okay, I don't
There
know.
is this
There is this
echo. I'm trying to
echo.
find out
I'm
why,
trying to
if it's
find out
from
why
my
if
end,
it's my end.
because that happens when
That
I am
happens when
talking.
I am talking.
Okay.
Okay.
I just okay.
I just okay.
Let's see. Okay. So
Okay. So
I was going to ask.
I was going to ask.
Let's first
Let's
establish:
first establish:
is there a link
is there a link
between
between
rape
rape
and
and
mental disorder?
mental
Talking
disorder?
about
Talking about
uh,
uh,
the rapist now.
the
Is
rapist
there a
now.
link
Is there a link
between
between
rape and
rape
mental disorder?
and mental disorder?
All right. Okay, I think that yes. So before we talk about whether there is a link between rape and mental disorder, it's good that we understand we are on the same page on what rape is. And in most contexts, rape is defined based on consent, forcefully coercing another person into a sexual act for which the person has not given any consent. Generally, people have the view that mental
Oh wow! We just lost connection with Dr. Aladejare, and okay, he's back now. This is some of the things we have to battle here in Nigeria. We are still struggling with a poor internet connection. Doctor, we lost
Doctor,
the connection
okay,
at some
I'm
point.
we
there.
lost
Oh,
the
okay,
connection at
I'm
some
back
point.
now. I'm back now.
Okay.
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me? Okay, I'm back now.
Yes.
So, like I said, there is a
Yes.
general view that people with mental disorders, that is, like I mentioned earlier, people with abnormalities in thoughts, emotions, behavior that affects the ability to carry out, withstand normal stresses of life, work productively each day, contribute their quota to their communities. People with abnormalities, difficulties in performing these activities, people feel that they generally are very, because they are disturbed, they engage in crime a lot. But from the data we have, it does not exactly support that. many times the problem is not even that. The much of the problem is them being vulnerable to a lot of violent acts. So in terms of violence, the numbers we have for people who have mental illnesses are not exactly too they are not exactly too different from what you have even in the normal population. Coming down to rape, mental illnesses, of course, mental illness has a part to play with rape. Mental illness has a part to play because, first of all, some of those who carry out these activities are disturbed, could have mental illnesses, yes. Also, there are psychological issues, there are issues of the mind that could have happened that are not necessarily a mental disorder that could have caused anyone to have acted in this particular way. There is also possible that people who have mental illnesses could also be victims of rape as well. So there is a huge connection between mental illness and rape. And if you permit me, I could go on. Should I go on?
No, no, no problem. Go on, sir.
No problem. Go on,
Okay,
sir.
so if you permit me, I will go on to talk about a few mental conditions and how they affect rape. First of all, one of the types people have tried to classify rape,
Okay,
kind of people
doctor,
that carry out the
Doctor,
activity.
maybe before you
come to
that,
that, come to that,
talked about that. Let
talk
me
about
first
that.
bring in
Let me first bring in
a psychologist here, and
psychologist here, and
of course, get to hear from
of course,
her.
get to hear from her.
Speaking as a
Speaking as
professional,
a
what
professional,
are the
what
things
are
responsible
the things responsible
psychologically that
psychologically
pushes one to
that
commit the
pushes
act
one
of
to
rape?
commit the act of
Okay.
rape?
So,
So, over
it's
time,
been found that the
it's been found
sexual
that the sexual
abuse of childhood
abuse of
is
childhood
a predictor
is
for
predictor
an individual who
for an
commits
individual who
sexual
commits
offense, who
sexual offense,
commits
who
the act of rape.
commits the act of rape.
It's been indicated
It's
that
been
these
indicated that
individuals
those
who were actually
individuals who were actually
abused as children
abused as
have
children
like
have like
sometimes greater risk
sometimes
of
greater risk
committing
of
this
meeting
crime
this
against
crime
children
against
compared to
children.
adults. Why? Because they feel that they
They
can
feel
intimidate
that
these
they can
people,
intimidate
this
the people,
population.
this population.
Hello, ma. I
Hello,
think
sir.
the
Yes.
audio from your end is
The audio from
not
your
really
end
as
is
clear as it
not
was
really
before.
as clear as it was before.
So I don't know if
So
it's
I don't know if
the
it's
connection.
the connection.
Yeah, some of the things you
Yeah,
said now,
some of the
we
things you
didn't
said
really
now,
get it very
we
clear.
didn't
How
really
about
get
now?
it.
What about now?
What about now?
Yes, it's that
Yes,
came out very
it's,
clear. Go on,
that
ma.
came out very clear. Go on, man.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Can you
Saying
hear me
that
now?
Yes.
Yes.
a child
A
is a
child
predictor
is a predictor
or is a risk
or
factor
is a
for
risk
an
factor for
individual
an individual
to actually commit
to
the
actually
act of
commit
rape
the act of
in life.
in life.
And some of the studies we've
And some
done
of the
has
studies
shown
we've done
that
has shown that
these individuals with this
this
childhood issues of
individuals with
rape
this child of rape
have about
have
fivefold,
about
five times
five
a greater
times
risk
greater risk
of committing this
of
sexual
committing this
offense
sexual offense
against children
against children
as against
as
adults.
against adults.
Why is this?
Why is this?
One is because
One
of the
is because of the
vulnerability of the
vulnerability of
children.
the children
Being able to be
being able
coerced
to be
easily,
quite easily
intimidated,
intimidated,
and then give them a
and then give
sense
them
of
a sense
power
of
of
power of
suppressing another
suppressing
individual,
another individual.
like they were
Like they
suppressed
were
or intimidated when they
suppressed
were
or
younger.
intimidated when they were younger.
Okay, so with this kind
Okay,
of
so with this kind of
condition, an
condition,
individual
an individual
psychologically,
psychologically,
so not all of them,
so
but
not all of them, most
actually
of them actually
are found to have
are found to
perpetrated
have perpetrated
this act of rape at
this
one
act of
time.
rape at one time.
And if this is
And
repeated,
if this is repeated,
then or
then
rather, if
or rather,
things have been committed once, there's the ability for them to actually commit it again the second, the third time, and all that until they are caught. So another issue that could lead to committing the act of rape is being unable to control your impulse. And that falls under the impulse control disorders. And these disorders, the hallmark is actually a failure to resist an impulse, or a drive, or a temptation to perform an act that is harmful to another person or to several people. Okay, so this impulsive control disorder, the disorders, they are most common in people who have hypersexuality. That is where rape falls in, and amongst other things like compulsive shopping, pathological gambling, and all of that. This sexual thoughts or behaviors of those individuals who have those disorders, they are actually excessive, and from the onset, they are marked by one, maladaptive preoccupation with sexual thoughts, always thinking about thoughts, like having defiant fantasies about thoughts, about the planning, about the preparation for this crime of rape. Then inappropriately or excessively requesting sex from their spouse or partners. We understand that even in marriages or even in relationships, some partners rape their partners, right? Some individuals rape their partners. So inappropriately or excessively thinking or requesting sex from your spouse can actually lead to rape when the other person is unable to meet you at the same level of libidinal energy. Then, some studies have found that habitual promiscuity, that still falls under impulse control issues. When you're unable to like control yourself to like maintain a single partner, you have like multiple partners at a point in time, because it comes easily to you that these females are available to you and all that. This habitual promiscuity can lead you to the difficulty with impulse control and the act of rape. Compulsive masturbation too, you know, when they have sexual urges, they're unable to control themselves, they just have to masturbate. I've seen clients who like masturbate like almost like 10 times or more in a day. Okay, so when they are unable to satisfy themselves with this, the next thing is they look for the next available person they can have sex with, even if the person gives their consent or not. Hence the issue of compulsive masturbation. And then also some of the things that could also lead to this act of rape, according to these impulsive control disorders, can be telephone sex lines. You are having an online relationship with an individual, you're always talking about sex and all that. The next thing they see you, even if you don't give your consent in the relationship, the next thing is to commit this act of rape. Or even watching pornography, that child or adult pornography and all that. All these are indicators for individual. When it's excessive, when it's gone beyond the normal, then it becomes an issue. And then there's a tendency that one might commit this act of rape eventually. And also,
Wow.
the intellectual disability. Studies have found that individuals who have they have significantly low intellectual capacity or the adaptive skill to be able to express themselves in terms of speech. That's They have limited critical capacity to think well and express themselves, and then this consequently affects their behavioral pattern. These ones are also susceptible to wanting to influence other people and then to also commit this act of rape. Okay, and these have been found, especially when they are even into the use of substances. When they are under the influence of psychoactive substances, they are unable to control themselves. They just do whatever comes to their head and all that. So there is a high probability of rape being acted, the thought of rape being acted upon if people are in this kind of category. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Ma. And in fact, that is very explosive, I must say. I love the way you outline the impulsive control disorder, and that will now bring us to Dr. Aladejare. Before now, you were going to talk about
mental
uh,
illnesses that
mental illnesses
can
that
push one
can
to
push
commit
one
this
to
act of
commit
rape.
this
So let's
act
come
of
to you,
rape.
sir.
So let's come to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think before I go ahead talking about it's important not everyone that really everyone
Uh, sir, we are struggling to hear you.
Sir,
Your
we are
audio level
struggling to
is
hear
somehow
you.
poor.
Your audio level is somehow poor.
But can you hear me now?
Yes, go on, sir.
Yes.
Okay,
Go on,
yes.
sir.
So I mentioned earlier that we need to be careful not to stigmatize every person with a mental disorder, not to stigmatize everyone with a mental
Yeah,
disorder
yeah.
as a rapist, not to consider everyone with a mental disorder as a potential rapist, because the fact of the matter is they are actually in the minority. So the care needs to be taken to not to, because if we put everybody, if you put them in that if we put them in that box, then we encourage stigmatization. We encourage everyone them
Right.
to not even be cared for by
Right.
their families. Yeah. So going ahead to mental disorders that have been associated with rape over time, I'll pick up from where the last speaker stopped. That is substance use. Substance use has been found to actually have a high risk of, probably one of the highest risk of committing sexual violence, which rape is one of. It has been found to have a very high risk using substances like alcohol, using substances like cocaine, especially because these things make people disinhibited. They make them lose control of themselves. And when they lose control, they do things that they would naturally not do in their regular self. There are other areas also, things like conditions like personality disorders, especially antisocial personality disorders. This is when the person is it goes against complete goes against all the social norms. The social norms, the person is antisocial, just like the name, doesn't follow the social norms and easily commits crime. The person lies, the person steals, the person is cruel, lacks empathy. So such a person is more likely to commit is more likely to carry out rape than any other person. Then another condition we want to consider is bipolar, especially mania, the manic part of bipolar. Bipolar, like the name is, there are two poles. So there is the manic pole, which is the high, where the person is has excessive activity, is irritable, the person is disinhibited, and then there is the other pole, which is the lower extreme, which is depression, where the person is in a state of is in a very low state. The person has a very low mood, and in some cases, the person cannot even move freely. Person doesn't even have energy to move freely. So, but the high state of it, that's the manic phase of bipolar illness. They've been associated with uh, some sexual offenses. Uh, even though the frequency of rape is not as high as what you would find in substance use and personality disorders. So, other conditions include schizophrenia. Incidentally, schizophrenia hasn't been found to have an exceptionally high incidence compared to in normal populations. Schizophrenia is usually many of the people you find on the streets who are moving around, who are psychotic, who hear voices, who see strange images. That they find that those people they don't commit this crime as much as people actually think. They don't carry out crimes as much as even more than the regular population. So these are some of the mental disorders that are associated. Also, dementia, which is found in very elderly people. You found in very elderly people, you will have heard of maybe a 70 something year old man or a 60 something year old man that is having sex, usually with a child, usually comes with a child. So it's also associated with them, although you may not find so much violence, you may not find violence when they carry out such acts. So those are some of the mental disorders that have been associated with rape. But I need to reiterate once again that to avoid stigmatizing mental people with mental disorders, We need to be careful not to conclude that everyone that commits rape has a mental disorder.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Aladejare. I like how you put it because, even before this session, I I was reading some stuff myself, and I discovered that from several reports put together, it has been found out that established that most people who commit rape don't have any, don't really have any form of mental disorder. That it's very rare for people with mental disorder to commit. That is the number of those with mental disorder that commit rape are very is very low. I think from what I read, it's about less than 1% of what the cases they recorded in India, because there was a time rape was very high in India. So thank you very much for really establishing that again, and which is of course the reason I started by. Okay, you want to say something, sir?
Yes, I wanted to add that rape is a condition of where somebody many times where they want to exert control, they want to exert power, and that needs to be that is many times that is the primary issue. The person feels that he wants to exert power over this particular person, whether the person agrees or not. So the person wants to lord it over the other person. So it's primarily a disorder of trying to exert control, trying to exert power, and you find it commonly in people who commonize women, people who do not count women, who think of women as properties, women as things that can be used. So they find it difficult to accept that such a thing, so to say, can actually say no and tell you that no, this is not the time for it. So they can have their way whenever they want because they think they own women. So those are some of the mindsets of people that carry out these acts, this crime.
Okay, let's come to you now. I know you like to add to what he has said so far.
Okay. Well, yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aladejare. About the stigmatization, right? And most of the studies we've done, shows that not all these people who presented with this diagnosis are the committed kind of crime, actually ever commit this kind of crime. So I would like to put that out there too. So now people believe that men's cognition foster rape with this idea of this alpha male kind of idea, and which has to do with power and like Dr. Aladejare has also mentioned. This cognition from also has to do with sexual preoccupation traits, which is evidenced by some of them pornography, either adults, children, defiant fantasies, having threesomes and all of that, making sexual plans and all that. So these fall under sexual preoccupation. How these thoughts are built up in these individuals. There's some also have this rape supporting beliefs that females they shouldn't wear indecent clothing. So what about these cases of children, of babies, 2 months old, like less than a year old babies we are seeing? What about the children less than 6 years and all of that? Teens, grandmothers, or even boys who are being raped. Were all these people also indecently dressed? Would we say they were indecently dressed and that was why they were raped? So we have some of those. Then there's also hypersexuality, sex as a way of life, like I described earlier. Anything goes when it comes to sex. So from studies we're getting now, some females have also been indicated in this act of sexual molestation. And this thought or cognition give this individual that sense of entitlement, and it aids their planning and preparation for rape. And also, it also encourages the denial. Rapists, by the time they see their victims, they like dehumanize them. They don't see them as living organisms or living beings. Like they don't see them as they don't see them as their children or their sons, their daughters, or see them as their mothers or grandmothers and all of that. They are in denial. They at that phase, at that point in time when they're about to commit a crime, they don't have empathy towards this individual, and that has to do with their probably the interpersonal relationship they've had from onset, from childhood and all that. Talking about their personality also, that's the antisocial personality now that Dr. Aladejare also mentioned. These individuals tend to have rapist denial and minimalization of rape as nothing. They don't see it as anything before they perpetrate the act. So also some rapists, like you said, I mentioned the childhood thing. And this individual, because of the experiences they had, the painful experiences too, that they were vulnerable at that point in time when the act was being committed to them. They think they have that power by hurting others or by taking back that power to themselves. They feel, okay, I was vulnerable, then I was weak. Now I'm strong, I'm a male or I'm a grown woman or I'm a grown man. I can do the same thing to another person. I can take back my power to myself. So by this, I'm hurting down my own that rapist that actually committed the crime back then when I was young. Okay, so these are some of their thoughts, and then some individuals also have those feelings of abandonment. I've spoken to some clients who tell you that, okay, when I was young, my sister was well taken care of. My parents actually gave more material attention than they did myself, or even emotional needs. They took care of her more than they did myself, and because of that, I want to like revenge. Some will say, oh, I want to have that power to be able to like override those feelings I used to have. So by the time they are unable to resolve those revengeful thoughts, it might result into the act of perpetrating this act of rape against someone of the opposite sex. That means to them they are revenging against what their parents had done when they were younger. So now they are taking back the power and all of that. And then when there is also inadequate bonding, this bonding occurs right from conception. When there's inadequate bonding of the parents to this child, or probably of the parent of the opposite sex to a child that eventually grew up to become a rapist, or a lack of emotional commitment for that child, it may lead to an attack on the opposite sex in future, like to forcefully get this commitment with the act of rape. Like they want this motherly or this sisterly affection and all that, and because they were unable to get it back, they feel like, oh, I can get it forcefully, I can get it from this person even without their consent. So we should also have in mind that like I said, once an individual had committed this act of rape once, if the person wasn't caught, or probably the victim didn't report or say anything about it to another person, then this rapist is liable or has a high probability of actually committing the crime over and over and over and over again until maybe they're caught and all that. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, that is very interesting, and I must say I'm learning. But I'd like to I'll ask you something because while you were talking about the impulsive control disorder,
Yeah.
you talked about hypersexuality, you talked
Equality.
about pornography, and of course
Yeah.
you talk about compulsive masturbation and some of this. Uh,
Yeah.
these are some of the thoughts that can push one to commit the act. Not necessarily that whoever engages in this is more likely
So
to commit the act.
yes, yes. I mentioned that earlier that some people, not all, that once they are into all those compulsive masturbation, pornography, and all that, they want to actually carry out the act of what they've seen there, especially those that have issues with relationship, like having poor social skills. Okay, so they are unable to form a good relationship with others, especially of the opposite sex. So they feel, okay, so how do I satisfy my sexual urges after probably watching pornography and all that? Let me take it forcefully. Let me take it forcefully from another person. Or probably after the compulsive masturbation and all, they are unsatisfied with this act anymore. Then they go ahead to actually commit, or probably to without the consent of the partner or the victim. They actually take this they actually commit this act of rape without the consent of that person. I mean, have sex with that
Okay.
person without their consent. Yes.
Okay. Just looking at our time. Yeah, I was going to ask. Okay, I'm just going to put two questions together. Dr.
Okay.
Aladejare, yeah. You mentioned earlier substance use, personality disorder, and I want us to take away the part where you mentioned bipolar, because I want to understand that that has to do
Because I
with
want to
the
understand that
mental
that has to do with
the
the
mental
mental
illness when we're talking
uh,
about mental
the
illnesses.
mental
So,
illness
but
when we're
now
talking
substance
about mental
use
illnesses.
is just
So,
something
but now
that is
substance
regular, even
use
somebody that
is
doesn't
just
have
something
any
that
form
is
of
regular,
mental
even
disorder.
somebody that
So,
doesn't have any
from your
form of.
study, is it really a case
So,
of the
from
substance
your
use
study, is
or
it
a
really
combination
a
of
case of the
personality
substance
disorder
use or a combination of
and substance use?
personality disorder and substance use?
Thank you very much. Like I mentioned then that this the primary problem is disinhibition, and
Okay, sir.
what disinhibition simply means is just like the name is disinhibited. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm with you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm with
Okay,
you.
yes.
Yes,
So
yes, we
what
can hear you.
disinhibition simply means is that
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
the person's inhibition, the internal control that the person has been removed. So because the internal control is no longer there, the person tends to do whatever it is that comes to his mind, whatever his imagination can pick up, the person does it. So what these substances do is that they remove that inhibition, they remove that control. And when they remove that control, what happens is the person begins to do things that he or she would probably not do on a regular day, things that he would not do on a regular day. So, for instance, if you take alcohol, if someone takes alcohol, if a person takes alcohol, especially someone who is not used to it, or takes alcohol beyond his own tolerance level of use, regular of use, the person could lose his inhibition. Alcohol can do that. Like I mentioned, cocaine earlier. Cocaine also can do that, can take away this inhibition. And when it takes away this inhibition, the person can carry out any of these acts. So that's why I mentioned that substance use is one of the major causes of rape in terms of relationship with mental disorders. Hello.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just quickly,
Just
I want us to
quickly,
now touch on this aspect
I want
now.
us to now touch on
Uh,
this aspect now. Uh,
are there
are there
psychotherapy that
psychotherapy
can
that
prevent this act, that can
can
prevent
prevent
one from
this act, that
engaging
can
in the act
prevent
of
one
rape?
from engaging in the act of rape?
Okay. You want me to take that?
Okay. Okay.
I'd like Oluronke to take
Now,
it.
I'd like Oluronke to take
All
it.
right.
Okay. Oh,
All right. All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
for some
So,
cases, we talked about comorbidities. That's probably someone that has some cases of schizophrenia, probably was taking medication or some other or in the manic phase of bipolar affective disorder, and also taking substances and all, or having impulse control issues. So some of the, because we have a core management, both the psychiatric and the psychological management. So sometimes if we feel that these individuals have not been on their medications, and probably because they've not been on it, they are more on the relapse phase of treatment, and then they go back to the some of the symptoms they presented with initially, we encourage them to come for visits, come for a clinic appointment, come for psychological appointment where we carry out the psychotherapy sessions, and also encourage them to be compliant with their medications. Now, I talked about some individuals who have issues with social skills the other time. There's something we
Yeah.
call cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a form of psychotherapy. Okay, so under this, we can actually take them through what we call cognitive restructuring and also what we call social skills training. This cognitive restructuring will help them for those of them who have those thoughts over and over, who have this disturbing thought of actually, you know, going back to committing this act of rape, like I talked about under the impulse control disorders. Then these individuals will help them restructure their cognition, the way they think. We help them restructure that. And then for those that have issues, probably with talking to females, establishing a normal relationship with a person of the opposite sex, either male or female, and then they feel that they have to take whatever they want from this opposite sex, this power thing, or take whatever they want from the opposite sex forcefully, then these individuals are taking through what we call social skills training, still under the cognitive behavioral therapy. And then for individuals who had past childhood sexual experiences, there's something we call psychodynamic psychotherapy. So we take them from the present into the past, we delve into their past. Okay, we want to know how this thing was committed. We want to know your feelings, your thoughts about those past events that occurred to you, this past negative life experiences, the act of rape that was committed when the person was young. We want to understand all of this, and then want to know how this person is dealing with these conflicts right now. Are they having issues of going back to or probably committing this act of crime and all of that? We want to understand. So we are treating them from the past into the present distressing effect of their negative experiences. Now we also counsel patients, and then also ideally some spouses and family members who are aware of this situation. We counsel them prior to initiating therapy to recognize the premonitory signs of probably impulsive control disorders, which is mandatory. And this sort of counseling for the families include questioning them and asking them to report to us unexplained absences, because for instance, someone who has an impulsive control issue, you know, okay, this person, whenever he disappears, he's probably going to commit that. Some, I'm not saying all of them who have this disorders,
Yeah.
but some of them who have those disorders, you just feel okay, they've disappeared from home for a few days. Where have they been to? What are they doing in that period of time and all? So you want to explain this, you want to report these unexplained absences, this secretive behavior, dodgy behavior and all that, their irritability, hiding of evidence about probably the onset of another episode of the impulsive control issues, and then monetary consequences. They spend lavishly, just like an individual who is in the manic phase of bipolar affective disorder. So all of these things you want to get reported. Now, also for psychotherapy for individuals who have intellectual disabilities, we want to focus on their sexual education. Some of them, when they present to us, some have mild cases of intellectual disability, some have moderate, some have severe, and some have profound. So what is the level of supervision we need to put in place for this individual? Can this individual actually understand when you're putting them through sexual education or through
Okay.
counseling?
I'm very sorry to interrupt you there. I know you would go on and on and on. You are in your full element already. But because
Thank
of
you.
our time,
Fine.
Dr. Aladejare, I know you have something to say about the treatment. When I mean the treatment generally, we're talking about a rapist. Because as she was speaking, my concern was that, okay, some of the things she has talked about will be if the person as an individual is interested to seek help, that's the rapist. If the rapist is interested in seeking help. So, but now, based on your profession now, are there programs going on to treat rapists who have been convicted? So even while as you are talking about treatment for rapists, I want you also to touch on that. If there is a program going on to treat rapists who have been convicted. who have been convicted?
Thank you very much for that question. I like the part you came from that. We even need to know if this person is even interested in this
Yeah.
treatment. And I will take it from the part of based on the law now. Okay, well, I'm not an expert in the law, but what I know about the law in Nigerian, based on Nigerian law, in anyone who is convicted of rape is sentenced to life in prison, life imprisonment. If you are able to, except if you are not able to prove that
Doctor,
the
permit me to just
Doctor,
interrupt
permit
you
me to
now.
just interrupt you now.
Let
Okay.
me let me
Let me
announce to our
let me
listeners that
announce
we
to our
have
listeners that we have
Shodeinde Oluwaponmile,
Shodeinde
who is the state
Oluwaponmile, who
coordinator
is the
of the
state
National
coordinator
Human
of
Rights
the
Commission,
National Human
Ogun
Rights
State.
Commission,
He has
Ogun
joined us
State. He
already,
has joined
and very
us
soon,
already,
as we continue,
and
we are bringing
very
this
soon,
conversation to
as
an
we
end.
continue, we
We
are
are going to
bringing this
come to him
conversation
as a
to an end.
sociologist
We are
and
going to come
also
to him
talk
as a
about
sociologist
what
and also
his
talk about
office, the
what
National Human
his
Rights
office,
Commission,
the National
is
Human
doing
Rights Commission,
about rape.
is doing
So,
about rape.
you're welcome, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. So,
Okay.
Dr. Aladejare, you can
Thank
go
you
on,
very
sir.
much. So, Dr. Aladejare, you can go on, sir. Okay, thank you very much. So, like I said earlier, that we need to know first of all whether this person is interested in the treatment. And the first place to start is I mentioned that in Nigerian law, anyone who rapes another person who is convicted of rape in a competent court of law is sentenced to life imprisonment. If so, with that, it means that that person obviously cannot come to us. So whatever issues that need to have been dealt with, whatever issues that needed to have stopped the person from carrying out that act, needed to have been dealt with before the person even carried out the act. So the person should have sought help earlier on. Should have sought help if the person knew that he had some of these impulses, some of these thoughts that could have predisposed him or her to carrying out this act. If the person knew, or if people around them knew that they had some issues that could lead them to carrying out this act, they should have sought help on behalf of the person before the act. Well, I believe the person that may be sent to us, that may be sent to a psychiatric facility, is probably somebody who is able to, if they are able to prove that the person committed the act based on a mental disorder, and is able to prove that they are able to prove that the mental disorder was primarily responsible for the act. At the time the person committed the act, the person was of such a mindset that the person did not know what he or she was doing. So you have to prove that the person did not plan it. The person wasn't capable of planning such a complex action, which I think would be very difficult to do. So yes, so summary right now I'm not aware of any program to treat anyone who is a rapist. Rape is a crime in the Nigerian law. Even if the person has a personality disorder and commits rape and rapes, the person will still face his case before a competent court of law, and will still be sentenced to life in prison. If the person if it's an issue of intellectual disability, then maybe some interventions could be done the way we regularly would treat somebody we regularly manage somebody with an intellectual disability.
Okay, sir. Well, I
Okay, sir.
like
I like
the fact that you have
the fact that
established
you have
that
established
it can be
that
treated.
it can be treated.
Like yourself and
I Okay. Yourself and
okay, go on, sir.
Can I come
Okay,
in?
go on, sir.
Yes. I've not said that it can be treated. What I've
Oh,
said is
really?
there are
Oh, okay.
issues like we've identified so far. There are issues that could have predisposed the person, and these issues must have been dealt with before this act is carried out. Before we can even talk about treatment, because once the act is carried out, chances that the person will even get any form of treatment is very low. And because the person is most likely going to end up in jail. And I'm not very sure if there are programs in the Nigerian correctional system that uh, psychotherapy programs, group therapy programs that try to address these issues for people with this problem. So if there is anything that can be done to help the person has any issue that needs to be attended to, that has to be done before even they act in the first place.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I like what you've
Yeah.
established there
I
because
like what you established
we
there
have to be
because
careful with this conversation so it
we have to be
doesn't
careful with this
seem as
conversation
if
so it doesn't
we are trying
as
to
if we are trying to
make a rapist
make
escape
a rapist escape
penalty.
penalty.
So for those listening to us, that is not
So
what
for
we are
those listening
saying.
to us,
We
that
are
is
not
not what
saying
we
a
are saying.
rapist
We are not
should
saying
not
a rapist
or serve
should
the
not
punishment as
or serve
prescribed by
the
law.
punishment
But why I
as
asked that particular question in
prescribed by
particular
law.
is that
But why I asked that particular
you
question
know
in
we
particular
are
is
looking
that
at it from the stage of before somebody
we
commit
are
that
looking at
act.
it from the
Which
stage
are some of
of
the things
before
you've
somebody
established from
that
the beginning
act.
of this
Which are some of the
discussion,
things
and
you've established from the
Mrs.
beginning of this discussion.
Miss
That's
And
Oluronke has also established
Mrs.
as well, talking
Miss
about
Oluronke has
those
also established
psychological
as well, talking
things
about
that can
those psychological
develop that thought.
things that can
So, if I
develop
understand
that
what
thought.
we've
So,
established here is
if
that
I understand
if
what
somebody
we've
knows
established
you
here is
have
that
this thought
if
pattern,
somebody
and
knows
some
you
of the
have
things she had
this
mentioned,
thought
we are not
pattern,
talking
and
about
some of the things she had
mental
mentioned, we are not
health now.
talking
We are
about
talking about the
mental health
psychological things,
now, but we are talking about
and the person willingly
the
comes to you for
psychological
help.
things,
As a
and the
psychologist,
person
you
willingly
definitely treat
comes to
that
you
person
for help. As a
of those
psychologist,
Yes,
problems,
you
not
definitely.
because
definitely
the
treat
person
that
has
person
committed a act of
of
Yes,
those
rape.
definitely.
problems, not because the person
Yeah.
has
The person that
committed
But
is
so
an
experiencing
act
some
of rape.
stress.
Yeah.
The person that is
But so
experiencing some stress.
okay, so I also want us now to talk about
so
after
I also
somebody
want
have
us now to
committed the
talk
act of
about
rape. That
after
is why
somebody
I
have
use the
committed the
fact
act
that
of rape. That
those
is
who are
why I use the
convicted
fact that those who are convicted
of rape. So I wanted to know
of
if
rape.
there is a
So I
program,
wanted to
because you
know
are the
if there is a
professional in the
program
field of
because you
mental
are the
health,
professional in the
and
field of
she's
mental
a
health,
psychologist.
and
So that's why
she's a
I asked if there is a
psychologist.
program
So
like
that's
that,
why
because we
I
know
asked if
that
there
the
is a
prison
program like
is a
that because
center
we know
for
that the
rehabilitation,
prison is a center for rehabilitation,
except for those who
So,
have a death
except for
sentence.
those who have a
Yeah.
death sentence.
So that is why I asked that question, sir.
So that is why I asked that question, sir.
so to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of any such program. So far, I'm not aware of any. To the best of my knowledge.
Okay. Right, I think I can come in
Right, I
there.
think I can
So
come
I
in
know we
there.
have some of my
I know
colleagues,
we have
psychologists,
some of my colleagues, psychologists,
and I also understand
and
that they
I
have
also understand
some
that
couple
we have
of programs,
some
at least
couple
the
of
basics,
programs,
to
at least
help
the
them in
basics, to help them in rehabilitation.
If they feel that sometimes we get
They
cases,
feel that
or
sometimes we get
for instance,
cases of
after we've
for instance,
evaluated them and all
after
that,
we've
we make
evaluated them
recommendations.
and all
And
that,
with
we
these
make
recommendations,
recommendations.
those in the
And with these
prisons, being
recommendations, those in the
psychologists, they are
prisons,
trained
psychologists,
in
they are
this
trained
area can
in
help
this
with their
area can
rehabilitation.
help with
I
their
know, I know
rehabilitation.
some of them actually doing that now,
I know
especially
some
Okay.
of them actually doing that now, especially in Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Ms.
Well, thank you very
Oluronke.
much.
Now, let me bring the state
Now,
coordinator
let me bring
of the
the
National
state
Human Rights
coordinator
Commission,
of the National
Shodeinde
Human Rights Commission.
Oluwaponmile. You're welcome, sir.
Shodeinde Oluwaponmile. You're welcome, sir.
Hello, sir. Okay,
Hello, sir.
I think there is a connection problem there. Okay, so
I think there is a connection problem there. Okay,
I can't really hear you. At this point, Dr. Aladejare and
Dr. Aladejare
Ms. Oluronke, I want to thank you very
Ms.
much
Oluronke,
for this
I
extensive
want to thank you
discussion.
very much.
But
for
before
this
we go,
extensive
before I let you go
discussion.
now, because I'm just looking at the time, I hate keeping people
Before I
longer
let you go now, because
than
I'm just looking at the
I
time.
promise.
I hate keeping
So-
people longer than I promise.
So I'll just like for us to do a recap of
just
some
like,
of the things we've mentioned
for us to
here,
do a
you've
recap of
established.
some of the things
You've
we've mentioned here, you've established.
From this discussion, we've established the fact that substance use
established the fact that
and
substance
personality
use
disorder,
and personality disorder,
and those that
you know,
have some form of
those that
mental
have some form
health
of mental
and
health
apart from that, you also establish the intellectual disorder as well. You know, and we thought, wow, this echo is back again. Okay, but yeah, I just want us to do a recap of some of the things you mentioned. I was taking a note of all of these. So let's start with you, Ma. Before we say goodbye.
Okay. So I actually didn't go into what you said. I think the echo was affecting me.
Yeah. I think the echo was affecting me.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. I just wanted us to do a recap of the things we talked about because of our time. Because of our time, of course, what happens in the mind of a rapist. We are not talking about the case of person with or a rapist with a mental disorder. But we're talking about those social factors you mentioned. Talking about the intellectual disorder, or hypersexuality, and all of the rest.
Okay. Okay. Excuse me. So, from what you just said, I think I got. You mentioned those issues that lead to individual actually committing rape. I will talk about how these thoughts can be managed, how the thoughts, the negative thoughts, or current thoughts that could lead them to actually commit the act over and over. How this can be managed as well. You were saying something?
No, not me.
You're saying something? No, okay. All right. Okay. So we talked about the hypersexuality of the way of we need to change our cognition, either as a male or a female or all of them, because both sexes are especially acts now. So we need to change the way we take with our ideas. The sexual preoccupation, we need to continue something else more positive, more healthy, that is more productive as well. Okay, and with this, we'll be in that position of having a state of mind, which is not actually planning or preparing for me this crime against anyone.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay. Hello.
I said, yeah. I said, let's just you do a recap of some of the things you mentioned.
Yes. Okay. So I will. If there's anything I want people to remember throughout, that mental illness does not directly equate to being a rapist. Mental illness does not directly equate to being a rapist. In many cases, in fact, in most cases, mental illness does not excuse rape as well. I mentioned that apart from substance abuse, personality disorders like antisocial personality disorder, and probably the manic phase of bipolar disorder. Apart from those three, mostly the rest of mental illness is not the rate of rape in people committed rape committed by people with mental illness is not disproportionately higher than people within the regular population. So that is very important to set that clear to prevent stigmatization of people with mental disorders. Also, I would like to add finally that much of the changes that need to be made to prevent rape, much of them are social interventions in terms of having families raising their children properly, reduction of domestic violences, reduction of domestic violence, because people who have been abused in the past when they were young are more likely to turn out as abusers much later in life. And then to ensure that there are strong laws which will serve as deterrents, because when people see that, when people don't get away, when the people see that when they do these things, they don't get away with it, then the chances are that other people are not likely to go the same way. But when more people keep getting away with it, then other people will learn from their example and they would continue in that path. And then if there are people who have any issues, that some of these recurrent thoughts that are some of these recurrent thoughts, some of these disturbing situations that they think they need help for, they should seek help before they commit any act. Because once they go ahead and rape anybody and they are convicted by the courts, then it's most likely life imprisonment, and treatment in that case might not really be of too much benefit to them. So it will be much better if that happens before they commit that act.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you
For
very
this.
much,
It
ma.
has been a
You're
very
welcome.
interesting conversation, and I like the fact that we are ending it on the note that if you know you have hypersexuality, you are addicted to pornography, you have this recurring sexual thoughts on your mind and all of the rest, seek help before you become a rapist. Seek help. You can see a psychologist.
You can see a
They are readily
psychologist.
available around you.
They are readily
So
available
that you
around
seek
you.
help and you know
So
some
that
of the
you
things
seek help
you have
and
to
you
do.
know some of the
And
things you have to
importantly
do.
as well, I just
And
want to add,
importantly as well, I just
just
want to
as
add,
Aladejare said, if you are
just as
somebody who
Aladejare said,
understands,
if you are somebody
if you
who understands,
if you are too used to substance
if you are
abuse,
too used to
substances
substance
like
abuse,
alcohol, and
substances
whenever
like
you take
alcohol,
alcohol,
and
it
whenever you
creates
take
these
alcohol,
funny
it
images in your
creates these
head,
funny
and you
images in
might
your
lose
head, and you
self-control,
might lose
which can result
self-control,
into you forcing
which
yourself
can
on
result
somebody.
into you forcing
Please
yourself on
seek
somebody.
help, avoid
Please seek
these
help,
substances,
avoid
and if you can't do
these
it yourself,
substances,
seek help
and if
from
you can't do it
professionals
yourself, seek help
so
from
that you
professionals,
prevent yourself
so
from
that you
becoming a
prevent
rapist.
yourself from becoming a
We are
rapist.
tired of all of these
We are
stories.
tired of all of these
In fact,
stories.
my guest has been
In fact, my guest has been
Miss Oluronke
Miss
Oginni.
Oluronke
Of course,
Oginni.
she is
Of course, she
the one
is
behind. She's a
the one behind.
psychologist,
She's a
a
psychologist,
clinical
a
and
clinical and
abnormal psychologist.
abnormal
I like that part.
psychologist.
But
I
let me
like that
guess.
part.
I
But let me
forgot to ask
guess.
her.
I forgot
What
to
is
ask
the part
her.
about the
What is the part
abnormal
about the
psychologist?
abnormal psychologist?
How is it different from
Why
the
is it
clinical?
different from the clinical?
Okay. Well,
Well,
for the clinical
for the
now,
clinical
we will
now,
say that
we will say
the
that
minor
the
psychological
minor
cases,
psychological
hmm,
cases,
the emotional
the
distressing,
emotional
growth
distressing,
and
growth
all of that,
and
they
all
all
of that,
fall under the
they all fall
clinical.
under
Now,
the
talking
clinical.
about
Now, talking about
abnormal, we're talking
abnormal,
about
we're talking
severe
about severe
psychiatric cases,
psychiatric cases,
psychosis, and all that, managing all
psychosis,
of
and all
those,
the managing
managing
all of
those
those, managing
delusions
those
and
conditions
hallucinations. You know, they
and
are
religions. You know, they
like
are
two extremes
like
off.
two
So,
extremes
hence the
off.
clinical
So
and
hence the
abnormal
clinical and
psychological.
abnormal psychological.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you very much,
Thank you very much,
Ma. Thank you for your time.
Ma. Thank you
And
for your time.
Dr.
And
Aladejare,
Dr.
in
Aladejare,
fact,
in
my
fact,
Oga, you
my
don't think we
Oga,
don't dey do this
you
till they
don't think we
come
don't
from
do this
radio.
till they come from radio.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
psychiatrist
he's
and
a
also
psychiatrist and also
he works with the
he
Federal
works with the Federal
Neuropsychiatric
Neuropsychiatric
Hospital at Yaba.
Hospital at Yaba.
They are readily
They
available.
are
We've
readily
talked
available.
before
We've
now
talked
about
before now about
what you can do
what you
to
can
seek
do
help. If
to
you know
seek
you
help.
have some
If you know
things
you have
you are
some
not
things
comfortable
you are
with,
not
some signs,
comfortable
be
with,
it
some signs, be it
mental related,
mental
you know,
related, you know,
is readily available
is
and
readily
his
available and his
colleagues, they are there
colleagues,
at
they are
the
there at
center,
the
or you
center,
can visit
or you
any
can
other
visit
place
any
around
other
you
place around you
if you are not in
if
Lagos
you are
to
not in
seek help.
Lagos to seek help.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Samuel
much, Dr.
Aladejare, for
Samuel
joining us
Aladejare, for
today.
joining us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So
That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I wanted to, you know, yes, thank you very much, Kayode. I understand that thing about the echo. Yeah, thank you very much. We're sorry. I understand it can be very disturbing. Uh, the state coordinator for National Human Rights Commission, uh, he has tried to be part of the program, but for the network. So I'm going to try to give him a call now from my mobile so that we can just talk to him on the phone. So I will call him and see if my phone will be loud enough to produce the audio, since that is the only means available for us to have this conversation with him. Anyway, he's sending me some messages already, but I'd just like for us to, to talk to him and get to hear some of these things. So do not forget, the reason we have to have this conversation is for you to understand that if you have some signs in you.
Hello?
Yeah, okay. I have, sir, I have you on the phone now.
Yeah, I'm with you now.
Okay, sir. So I just think that since we can't really achieve this, let's have an audio conversation.
No problem. I've been eager to talk because I've listened to your panelists, Dr. Oluronke and Olajuwon.
Yeah, Aladejare.
Aladejare, yeah. From the sociologist point of view, the theories of the standpoint of sociological theories on race is an evolutionary adoption, which influences psychology, because I know Dr. Oluronke is a psychologist, and
Yes.
she's done well from her analysis. So, as a sociologist, we see the human being as animal, and these theories were made popular by biologists Randy Townhill and one anthropologist, Greg Palmer, in their book, The Natural History of Race, which was published in the year 2000. Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
Okay, good. And such theories are highly controversial, though, but typically the behavior is an adoption, not inherited. We don't say you inherit it, you adopt it as a human being. And even as animals, those behaviors are found in animals. Rape-like behaviors are found in animals, in the animal kingdom. And those behaviors are more with the duck, the kwekpeye, as we call it in Yoruba, the duck, the chimpanzees, and the orangutans. The orangutans are the closest to the human being.
Yeah.
And those such behaviors are referred to as stock populations. And in the human race, you have, the human race is more like a competitive way of living. We all strive to earn a living. And in this competition, most likely the losers in this competition are the ones who end up behaving in such animalistic ways. We refer to them as losers in the society, in the competition or in the harem building of family. They are referred to as losers. Since the means of access to legitimate or consensual sex is not available to them, or they cannot afford it, then their only option, or their most likely option, is to resort to rape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sir, before now, just during the last time we discussed, I talked about the fact that we cannot have this conversation without talking about your commission, the National Human Rights Commission.
Human Rights Commission, yes, exactly.
So, I asked Dr. Aladejare a question the other time when we were talking about psychological therapies that can be used to treat a rapist or somebody that has some factors they've mentioned that can push one to commit the act. I would like to know, sir, as a sociologist.
No, I still not agree with all the factors that push, that both of them are suggesting that push some.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start from there, sir. They talked about
because those who are likely to commit that offense of rape are males in males we refer to as high status males. Because of the fear that when they commit those kind of offense, when they do such things, the female would not want to come out in the public, thinking, okay, this person is a high status male in the society, nobody will want to believe me. Or low status women. Low status women also commit rape. Yes, they do. Because of their life history and the way they were brought up, or the environment they grew up, they tend to want to take it on the male folk. So,
Okay.
and I was talking about those losers in the society.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
The men who have ego problems or are low on status. They have few opportunities. That's where both of them are. I will give them credit. Those men who are on low status, they are either drug people, drug addicts, or people who want to just because of every problem they feel the best way to do is violence to neighbors and friends and family and the society.
Okay. Yeah. So I understand what you've mentioned, sir, and that will not make me ask you, sir. We know it's a violation of human rights. That is the first thing about rape. The right of the person, the victim.
Exactly.
Then the second thing, it's a crime
Very well.
against the state and everybody who is not even directly involved. So,
If found guilty, a rapist is likely to spend a minimum of 14 years in jail.
yeah. So I want to ask, what is the National Human Rights Commission doing to ensure that justice is served when someone comes out to say they've been raped by a particular individual?
Thank you very much. Before I go into that, it is on record, or if you do your research, according to the World Health Organization, more than 35% of women experience physical or sexual violence through their lifetime.
Yeah.
And the National Human Rights Commission has been really spending so much on sensitization. Through the media, through advocacy, through human rights education, we have been doing a lot of sensitization. And there's this thing about if you come to the human rights to report a case of rape, of course your person will not be made public, but we'll take it up, and the police will always prosecute whoever is being reported. After their investigation, the police will prosecute that because it's a criminal offense. And the criminal code states it clearly. If found guilty, it's not even it's not a bailable offense.
Yeah.
It's not a bailable offense. So that's to tell you how serious this matter is. Recently, even the IG of police has ordered his men to be thorough, to sharpen their skills in investigating crime against women, violence against women, and the commission is not taking it lightly. It's not taking it lightly. So it's what the commission has been really hammering on.
So, okay, sir. You talked about the commission doing a lot in sensitizing the public. So, I need you to tell us more about that. Is it letting them know that they should be free to come out when they suffer any form of sexual abuse?
Rape doesn't start. Rape doesn't start like that. A rapist would have been molesting girls or boys around him from a very young age. Rape and sexual assault or violence against women are very severe human rights violations. They remain widespread, but a lot of times, maybe because of our culture, our women, our brothers and our sisters want to keep it. Even sometimes parents discourage their words from coming out to the public to tell the world that have been traumatized. Yeah. You know, women who have experienced intimate partner violations are significantly more likely to have alcohol use, going to drugs, and we will be building a good society by having those kind of issues.
Okay. So the commission is encouraging people to know that to be confident, come out and talk about these things so that it can be taken up.
Very well. Because their person will be taken care of. You know? Is this you come to us, you are covered. We won't tell the world who you are. Just give us all the details. That's why we have 36 states, 36 offices all over Nigeria. Every state in Nigeria has the office of National Human Rights Commission.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for this.
Yeah.
Now let me ask, because I was reading up something. It's about a case study on India, and they said that in India it's a case of some activities that had happened without punishment. Do you think that is also what pushed some individuals into committing the act of rape or sexual molestation and everything, because they know that they can easily nothing will be done to them?
You know, as I said earlier, most likely rapists are high status males. And when you have friends in high places, you tend to, a lot of things tend to be covered. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
And you know, rape is a very sensitive. It's also a very sensitive matter, because most times when it happens to you, you should quickly make report. Get a doctor to carry out tests, because you need evidences before a law court. If you don't have enough evidence, a lot of times you end up losing your case. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand you.
Yeah. When things like that happen, we should quickly get somebody to confide in, help us go to the hospital, get a medical report, medical examinations are done, and when all those are done, I mean, there's nowhere. You know, there's a case before. You know, normally we don't talk about cases before law court, which is the normal thing. But you know, there's a commissioner in Ogun State.
Yes, of
who's
course.
been arrested on charges like that, on charges of rape. You know, and he's denying it. He's denying it. But you know, if you're bold enough to come out and say, I've been violated, and these are all the evidences I have, these are witnesses, or these are, you know, and your stories corroborate, why not? Because it's a very sensitive issue. It's a very sensitive issue. Very, very sensitive issue.
Okay, sir. Let me just go into some of the messages you sent to me before I put the call through to you. And okay. It's also some of the things you've mentioned. You know, you've mentioned already, which is about from the sociologist point that is rape is animalistic. Yeah. I like that. I like that angle. So, sir, if we now talk about the National Human Rights Commission, is there a way the commission is helping the police in at least gathering evidence against people who have been accused of rape? Because if I understand what you've said, if people comes to the Human Rights Commission believing that, from the sensitization going on, they can come to your officer or your office and confide in you, do you then help assist the police in such a way so that prosecution can be made easy?
Yeah, when things like that happen, we should quickly get somebody to confide in. Help us go to the hospital, get a medical report, medical examinations are done, and when all those are done, I mean, there's nowhere. You know, there's a case before law court, which is the normal thing. But you know, there's a commissioner in Ogun State. After all our investigations are done, the matters are sent to the police for prosecution. And we also monitor the police because a lot of times people come back to us to say the police is beginning to take sides with the rapist or with the violator. But since, currently the new set of police, it's even in their manual. We've been doing training for the police, and the police has really improved in their ways of carrying out investigations and in their carrying out their duties too. So these days we don't get sometimes when you come to us for you come to report violations to us, even when they are not rape related, we call in the police and the police sort out whatever the matters are. Like somebody calls me at 11 p.m. that her husband is maltreating, beating her. He's dead. Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
I don't. At 11, I will not leave my home, my house, to go and attend to a woman who's been battered. All I need to do is just call the DP of the area where the house is, and he sends his men there to go and bring them to the station, and the matter is sorted out. And the following day, we do a follow up. So the police they've been very helpful in trying to see that the society works well.
Okay, and I must say that it would be nice for me to just say this before I ask the next question. I must commend the commission. I see some of the things you're doing on social media already, led by the chairman of the commission himself, taking up every cases that has to do with human rights violation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sir, now let's come back to sociology now and look at it. From this sociological angle, are there cultural backing or factors talking about the environment now, the culture within an environment? Are there cultural factors responsible for the act of rape?
Well, there are culture. I would say yes. The culture permits some unwanted or some unwarranted violations against women. Where a man, even a married man is supposed to have the consent of his wife before he touches her.
Yeah.
But in society, that is an easy example I'm trying to let you know now. That is the easiest example I can give you. A man is supposed to ask his wife if she's in the mood for it.
True.
Hello?
Yeah, true. I'm with you, sir.
But in society, the man will tell you, I'm the king, I'm the head. I take it whenever I want it, I do it how I want it. And when the woman tries to resist, he brings in another woman. And even the wife's parents or family will tell her, you don't deny your husband sex. The family, the extended family is not supportive, they are not understanding. I think it's a game of two, and there has to be consent, there has to be understanding, there has to be friendship, there has to be love. You don't just take it because she's your wife. That is even I'm talking from the home angle.
Yeah.
Since the culture allows that to happen, so the man feels, after all, even the one that I'm legally married to, I can misbehave. Why don't I take the one that I'm not legally married to? And when you go to when it is brought to the elders' knowledge, the elders are supposed to take care of matters like that. They say, it is not anything. The man's word.
Oh wow! I just looked at the time now. I've loved to. I really wish the network didn't really act up. But sir, let me ask this live on radio. Can I? When else can we do this again? When can you be free that we can really talk generally, extensively about human rights?
But yes, this week
Yes, sir.
I'll give you any time, any day, except I am tight. I'll let you know. But anytime you want me, I'll always be on your show.
Oh, okay, sir. Because
Anytime you want me. But I want to say this before you quickly. Our women do have a lot to do. Our women have a lot to do. We should start training up our girls, our daughters, on ways to live. And our women should discourage some attitudes, we're good people. We shouldn't learn cultures that are not part of ours.
yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It's one of the things I've prepared already to ask you, because on Saturday, my wife and myself, we have a program called My Wife and I, and we talked about we name it parenting and the gender trap, because I read something put together by a sociologist, and they were talking about the developmental pattern in a child, how a child will grow up, what parents do, what the society contribute to, that can make that child grow into becoming a sexual violator or a rapist and all of the rest. So I really wanted to engage you on that, but because of our time.
No problem. We still have other time to do that.
Yes,
if I tell you that in the whole of this country, there's no university that offers a course as behavioral science.
Wow.
It's in society. If we have courses like behavioral science, people go to school to study that and know how to manage human beings. We really don't know how to manage human beings. And parents need to attend classes. Seriously, there's nothing wrong in coming to my office and saying, please, I want to have time with you. I have this problem. I want to be taught. I want to be encouraged. I want to be put through on issues I'm confused about. It is free of charge. I won't charge you because I'm supposed to. It is my job. My job. So please, you can try to tell anybody. Go to work into any National Human Rights Commission. Ask to see the state coordinator. One-on-one. You can sort out family issues and parenting.
Oh, wow, interesting. I didn't know this before now, but interesting. I've learned something as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir, for granting me this opportunity, and also for giving me an open invitation to always call on you anytime.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah, that was Shodeinde Oluwaponmile. Is the national, the state coordinator, I beg your pardon, the state coordinator of the National Human Rights Commission, Ogun State. He's a sociologist, and he just mentioned something, that there is no university in Nigeria that teaches behavioral science. These days I've been reading a lot about sociology and psychology, not because I'm one, but because I want to enhance my communication skill when it comes to some of these things. I hope you've learned one thing or the other from this program today. Tomorrow is Thursday. I hope you join me again. Do not forget that you can always go back to watch this video again, and for those listening to us on radio, I'll make the audio available for you to listen to on our website, www.cinnigeria.com, so that you can play back the audio at any time if you don't want to see the video. So thank you very much, guys. This is where we draw the curtain on the program today. But don't forget, it's very important, if you are somebody, if you know you have the tendency, there are some of the things the psychologist mentioned to us, which is, she described it as the impulsive control disorder. That's if you are hypersexual, you're always thinking about, thoughts like that, some crazy sexual activity, and you might be thinking towards the direction, or you think you're at that point where you might have sexual intercourse with somebody without their consent, where you might want to force someone into the act, you better seek help now before. We don't want you to add up to the number of rapists. You know, a lot of things have been mentioned. We've talked about personality disorder. You know, people who have intellectual disorder as well. And most importantly, do understand that mental illness does not directly equate to becoming a rapist. So, and all over the world, people who commit rape are not usually those with mental illness. That is my time today. I want to say thank you very much. Let's do this again on Friday. Wow, you go mad. Friday is going to be very interesting. Sheun Kuti will be joining me live on Friday for a very extensive discussion on democracy, the pros and the cons. From here, I want to tell you, bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Don't become a rapist. And if you are a victim of rape, speak out. Yeah, thank you very much. Men, learn to seek consent. If someone says no, don't force it. Thank you all, and goodbye from here. Bye-bye.